So I'm going to start with a pencil and I'm going to wind up doing this in ink, but I want to do a little quick layout first. So let's do this for like 20 minutes. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grid this off. So I'm just going to draw a line down the middle, right on the assignment itself, and just guesstimate where the middle is. And I'll just stop right there. I don't have to do half of the half. I'll just do it down the middle. I'm then going to lightly in pencil do the same thing on my sheet. I mean, you see, it's pretty light, but you can kind of see it. All right, so I'm deliberately doing it lightly because I don't want to, I'm not going to, ideally, I don't have to erase a bunch of stuff. But once I've got this grid set up, I can look at this and say, all right, if I want to do it exactly as on this page, well, it starts about here. And it goes to about here. And it's about the same over here. I'm just roughing in some borders in pencil. Okay, I'm going to look for the big things first, obviously, and we've got this lake blob. I'm assuming it's a lake blob because it's got bridges on it and it looks like docks. So if I look, it kind of starts, it crosses my middle line right about here. It crosses my middle line here. So right about there, I'm just going to put a little mark there. All right. If I look here, if I find the middle where the two lines intersect, that's where two lines intersect. Well, I got a little edge here, and then I got a little edge kind of like here. Just putting these little marks on, say where I'm at. Let's look over here. Well, I come down about the same distance here. And I got a little blob that goes to about halfway here. Again, just lightly sketching this in, comes across, comes down, touches the line. Oop, I don't like that. That's a little too big, so I just move it up a little. It's down, comes back, makes a little doobery. That's another technical term. Doobery and woogly. And then it's going to go down like that. No, actually it goes much further than that. Actually, I'm wrong here. It should touch it here. It should go like this. It should go like this. It should go like this. And then come down here. I made my dots. So all I'm doing is just lightly trying to copy what I see. Oh, that goes over further. And this one went like this. That comes down and goes like this. This goes like that. This here. This here. This one goes in line. If I look, this one almost makes a straight line like that. Come down to here. And sweep around. This one's about midway through here, so I'm a little long on, I might be a little. Well, I got lost. So I'm here. Go out. And in. Move the blob here. Now, all right, can you kind of see that squiggly line? It's sketchy, it's scratchy. This took me about, I don't know, 4 minutes, 6 minutes tops. That's the most important part of what you're doing. When you're doing a sketch, blocking out those big things in the beginning quickly is the critical step. Because if you get that wrong, the rest of it it's all downhill from there. So I've got this blocked out roughly. I know and it's not 100% accurate. I can look at it and adjust things a little. That's a little wide. There we go. That's a little narrow. There we go. That one looks acceptable. Oh, that one goes here. And I'm spending a lot of time looking at the print, looking at this, not as much on this. So all of sketching and drawing in general is about drawing what you actually see, not what you think you see. So really just look at it. It's all eye-hand coordination. I got a little road that goes here. Comes up here, goes like that, goes off the page. I got it up here. And I could do this in ink. All of it, I could do the layout in ink, but I'm gonna do the drawing itself in ink. I don't know what this is. Is that a railroad? I don't know. Maybe just some tire tracks there. Next I'm gonna look, before I go much further on these roads, although this road goes up, goes straight, and then comes up here, right to the edge of the paper, and then shoots off and comes in. Again, light, light, light. No reason to crank down on your stuff at this point. All right, I've got these. I've got my little bridge here. I think it's a bridge. So I'm going for the hard built things. And now I'm going to start putting in trees, and I'm going to be pretty loosey-goosey with the trees. I'm going to do a lot of the trees as circles for now. I got a tree here. Whoops, no, I don't. I got a tree here. I got a little clump of trees here, circle, circle, circle. I got a clump of trees here that are all smaller. Look for big clumps. It's a pretty big one. Circle, circle, circle. A few little ones here. Where's another big? Oh, there's a clump here. And again, I'm drawing my clumps of trees in roughly just as circles, lightly. Oh, I forgot a road. There's a little road that comes off of here. Goes like this. Goes like that. Comes around and joins into there. Sort of. Nope. Kind of there. Close enough. All right, so I got a clump of trees here. I got a clump of trees here. I got a few more here. I got some little fellows along the road here. And again, just drawing clumps. I'm not going to get super worked up about, let's see, that's that curve, that's there, and then we got some more here. I'm missing some of the roads that are there, but I'm not super worried about that. I'm looking for the things that are black, the blacks and the dark things that I can see. And if you'll notice, most of the trees are not just one tree, but they're like a clump of trees touching each other. So make your circles touching each other, except for now we get in the island. We've got one there. That looks like actually 4. Let's do 2 there. Gotta remember where my actual line is. And I got some here. Here. Oh, I got a bunch here. And here. It's actually supposed to go. No. I'm kind of blowing it there, but I don't care. Not going to get super worried about the parking yet. All right, I'm gonna be, in the interest of time, I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna just throw in a few more trees and call it good. Okay, so now I've laid out this whole thing. Now I'm gonna go through, convince my pen to write. And I'm gonna start doing some of the lines. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use just notice those professional dots. Very specifically breaking this up. And I'm trying to make this line that I roughed out in pencil distinct. Where the trees go over the lake, I'm not gonna draw a line through the trees. I'm gonna stop it. Hang on, I missed a tree. So I'm just doing little sections of line with dots. Couple dots here and there. No, missed some trees. I'll get over it. And if I see any mistakes, I can fix it. But now I've got that line, which represents the outside of that lake. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to start doing the trees. But what I'm going to do with the trees is, and I want you to watch this. Let's look at a big clump or a fit. Let's look at this clump right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a profile line around them, but it's not going to be a normal profile line. I'll draw this big so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. If I've got a clump of trees that looks like that, all right, I've drawn it like that. I'm going to do it in pencil. So it looks more like what I just drew, but I've already lost my pencil. This will have to work. I'm going to do a profile line around these trees. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to do a straight line. I'm going to do a W. I'm going to do a straight line and a W, straight line, W, straight line, W. So I'm not really doing okay. See how that looks like a clump now? I didn't do the W lines around these inside, just around the edge. I'm doing a straight line and a W, and then a straight line and a W. I'm going to do the same thing on these clumps. I'm doing it. Now these are small, so I'm just going to go around. Oh, oops. I'm just going to make that one kind of its own little trait. Okay, let's do it here. And I might not do them all just in the interest of time, but you're going to want to do them. When you do the next one, you're probably not going to want to draw each individual tree because there's a lot of trees on the next one. So you'll just be doing clumps, but
Are we supposed to time ourselves on these? Like,
Oh.
and only do them in a certain amount of time or?
my answer to that is yes and no. I would set a timer. How long did I say you should spend on each one?
15 to 20.
That's on the
Verbally.
sketches, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think the assignment
25.
was it 30, spend a minimum of 30 minutes on each drawing. I would go ahead and set a timer for 15 minutes, see where you're at in 15. You got to spend at least 30. If you start going much more than 45 to an hour, then kind of stop where you're at. I don't need you spending 2 to 3 hours on this thing or an hour. I don't think, I would like to see you do it in a half an hour. But I would say 45 if you want to spend a little more time on it. Once you start getting into an hour, it's you're spending, just bring in what you got. I'm not grading them. I'm reluctant to say what I'm about to say. The points you get for an assignment, you don't get partial credit if it's not a good job. You either did it or you didn't do it. If you turn in anything, you'll get the points. So if you can only work on, if you worked on it for half an hour and it's incomplete, bring in what you got, you still get the 2. I don't say, oh, you only get 1.5 points because no, if you turn in an assignment, you'll get the 2 points.
Last class, it was like 200 points or something.
Well, it's that'll, I'll get into grading very shortly, because we are running late on time. All right, I'm gonna stop on those trees there for now. I'm gonna put in, if I knew I only had like 5 minutes left. What I would do is I'd put in a couple of those things. Oh, I also, yeah, this one doesn't have it that way, so I'm not gonna do it, never mind. I would go ahead and draw my border in. Okay, notice I got overlapping corners on the border. I'm not gonna worry too much about the roads. I might, you know what, I'll put the roads in really quick. I'm gonna do the same thing with the roads. I'm just doing, trace a little. Put in a dot or two here or there, especially when you're doing these lines that are supposed to be the same distance together. It's real easy to get in trouble. That's where those professional dots will help you. If there's a tree over the road, I'm gonna show it. A lot of what I'm doing now is just tracing over lines and trying to make them smooth and distinct. And if I see any places I can correct them, I do. Don't be afraid to use those dots. I'll usually do one side of the road first. And then I'll come back and do the second side. And there's the last road. Now what I would do, so I've got this, I've got my ink layout done pretty much where I like it. The next step I would do is I would start looking for shadows on the drawing. And if you'll notice, all the trees have a shadow down and to the right. You can kind of see it right there. You can see it there. You can see it there. You can see it there. So watch what happens when I take these clumps of trees and I just put a shadow down and to the right, like the sun's coming from up here, shining down on the trees. I'm gonna do some up top. I'm doing this with my fat Sharpie. I'm just going down and to the right. So I want you to look at the trees. Don't be afraid to throw a few dots in there. Take a look at these trees up here. How well do they stand out compared to these trees down here? Just by putting that shadow on. I'm gonna do a few more. And it doesn't take real long once you get rolling. Down and to the right. Just think of the sun as coming from up there and shining light this way. So I've got shadows on all the trees. Oh, I don't. You know, all the trees that I inked, I've got those shadows on. So now what I want to do is I'm going to add a little character to those trees. And to do that, I'm going to start by putting a dot in the middle of each one of them. Remember, these were all little circles, so I'm putting a dot in the middle of each circle. I only did a line around the edge of it, but I can still see those circles I put in there with pencil. And that just you can kind of see it makes a difference. Look at the trees with the dots versus the trees without the dots. And the dots help. And if I want to take it further, which I will do in a minute, you'll see where those dots will help. Okay, I've got dots in the trees that I did. Now I've got to figure out how I want to show where the lake is versus where the grass is or whatever the dirt is. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double line around the edge of the lake. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use the same line W, line W, line W, line W. So I draw a little line, I draw a W. I draw a line, I draw a W. And you'll see in a minute what that's going to do. Line W, line W. It's kind of loosey-goosey. Remember, we're trying to do just a graphic representation of this. Oh, I forgot my dots. And you can start to see that when I do that, the lake lines stand out more than the road lines, and I want that. So I'm just going around the lake blob. W, line, W, line, W. And be loose and fast with this. It's meant to be, in some of these things, the faster you go, the better it looks. Because you want it to look loose and kind of scribbly. Are you folks following along with me and doing this? Awesome.
Oh, yeah, I'm just watching at this point.
Okay, well, that's all right. So I did the lake, so the lake stands out a little more than the roads because it's got that double line. Depending on where I was with time, would I stop here? I wouldn't, I'd add some more. What I would start to do is add some texture into this. And by that, there's two places I can add texture, potentially three. What's interesting is in the photo, the lake is darker than the dirt. All right, so in my drawing, I'm not so sure I would do it that way. Because I have a couple techniques I would use to show the dirt. And I'll show you one of them right now. When I have big areas of grass in particular to put in, I put in my special grass lines. And what those would be some white diagonals. And this isn't gonna make any sense at all until I'm doing these diagonal lines. I'm being kind of irregular with them. This is just a little technique for filling up large areas of drawing without spending a lot of time. So I'm doing these light lines. And although in this one, it's probably dirt that we're drawing, I do this a lot for grass.
It looks like a robot head, kind of,
Well,
like wearing glasses too.
I don't know, maybe.
The nose, the eyes.
I hadn't seen that, but I'll stare at it longer and see if I can, if it'll come to me. Okay, so my first thing is doing these lines in one direction. Trying not to go in the lake. Trying not to be super regular with them. In other words, they got a little character to them. They're not all the same width apart. They might go narrow and then get a little closer together. I'm trying to be consistent with them across the page. So if I start one there, I want to make sure it goes all the way through. That looks good. So that's step one with these lines. Step two, I'm going to go through and put some other lines going the other way. And I want you to notice the overlap that I have. So let's take a look where I do this here. I'm gonna do this stripe right here. I put a line, I put two lines, I put another line, I put two lines, I put two lines, and I'm going almost perpendicular to them, but not necessarily exactly perpendicular. And then when I do the next row, I kind of stagger it. And what that does, and I have a tough time convincing, if this is a tough thing to grasp at first, and a lot of students don't like it in the beginning. They grow to love it, at least a little. But it's a nice technique for filling up big areas when you're in a hurry, as opposed to trying to draw a whole bunch of dirt. And it kind of hints that that the dirt is different than the water. And it doesn't take a lot of time to fill up a large area. And you kind of get the hang of it after you do it for a while. And notice I'm kind of alternating them between, so I don't, here's one in this row there, I move it over a little on the next row. I don't try and do, you're just trying to be irregular. It's, All right, so now it kind of looks like that lake's something other than the dirt. Okay, so, I mean, you could kind of stop it there for a graphic representation. If I took it further, what I would do, and I'm not going to do all of it, but I would take the trees, let's look at this clump of trees and this clump of trees. If I take the trees and I put my dot in the center, and then I put some branches, like 6 or 7 of them, put a dot, put 2, put 1, put 2, put 2, put 1, put 2. Again, I'm just trying to make this irregular. Now, all of a sudden, that looks like a clump of trees, and I could do that on these. And again, if I was doing this for a client, I would do this to every single tree. Once you get rolling, you can do a lot of these. Start with the bigger trees in the clump. Put the branches in. These are small trees, so again, you can bang out a lot of these in not a lot of time. But see, those are my clump trees, and those start to stand out a little more than the other ones. Right? Next thing, if I wanted to do anything else, I might add some stippling into the water. So I would, but that's a little dangerous. Stippling is just making dots. Put a couple dots down. Put like 4 or 5. And then kind of feather them out. Aim for your corners when you're doing texture, meaning if you've got a little area where one bumps into another, like the road bumped into this, kind of fill it in there. You got to go easy with the stippling. Once you get used to it, a little bit goes a long way, and you're trying to make it kind of fade a little in and out. There's that road, so let's put a couple there, and I mean, I'd call that good enough for now. So we're 25 minutes in or so on this. So, and that's kind of, ideally, if you could get it to that, if you want to be a hero, you can then take a white vinyl eraser and go like this and get rid of all your pencil lines. But I don't usually do that, but it is kind of a nice. And you can see the difference, especially in the trees where I took the pencil lines out and where I didn't. Make sense? Beautiful.